I think Dakota finished that pizza on that commercial, Emily.
He probably did. I know the beer for sure.
Well, oh, yeah, there's no
given.
question about that. So, that got knocked down. The pizza, I would say most likely. The cool thing about our OTB locations, and we have so many of them in the Chicagoland area, great food, great drink, great atmosphere, and as you saw, gobs and gobs of TVs. You can watch whatever signal you want. You can look probably 3-4 different ways and you can see that signal on multiple screens. So it's a pretty cool setup at our OTB locations.
And I'm glad you said that, because the one we just showed the commercial for at Oak Brook, I'll be there this Saturday. And this Saturday is going to be a busy day because it's the Hambletonian. And I know Oak Brook already said that most of them is already filled up. So we might actually be in the restaurant area that we saw in the second commercial, which will be okay with me because that looked pretty nice. Yeah. But yeah, we'll be in there talking all the stakes races at Saratoga, Whitney, and then maybe throw some harness in. We'll see.
The Whitney's a great race and a cool race for the reason that we're going to find out just how good Cody's Wish is, and we're going to find out if this is a horse that you're talking dirt mile for the Breeders' Cup or Breeders' Cup Classic, because he's a super horse, he's awesome, but distance, I don't even want to say it's distance limitations, we just don't know yet. Right. But we're going to find out in this race, and it is an awesome card at Saratoga, and when you're having this little round table with everybody, you're going to take some input from everybody else too and see what they like for horses and kind of about combining tickets and stuff along those lines, right?
Yeah, I'm actually taking more of a leadership role trying to get people there than actually being like the one standing in front of the class, because I think everybody has something to offer, and once you start getting into discussions, things come up, things maybe you missed, or maybe somebody's on the fence, or all these races, we'll go through all these races full card. There's a lot of races that come up and you don't really have a strong opinion, and maybe somebody will say one little thing and you're like, you know what, that's it. Now all of a sudden I love this race, I know exactly how to play it, and that's really what I want to do, get people out and have that option for people that just want to come and talk races and hang out.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing about it. And when you see something that pops up, and we've talked through races at times where like, oh yeah, I remember that happening, and then you go back and it kind of changes your notes and your thought process in that on a race, because it comes down to trip notes, what people see, circuits people focus on, and things along those lines. So it's a nice way to get together, so check it out. Information on our website at hawthorneracecourse.com. Before we look at today's card, we want to look a little bit ahead to Sunday's card, because we've talked about it throughout the course of the week. We have capped the high five, so we didn't have the high five yesterday. Don't have the high five today. So the jackpot high five now becomes a mandatory payout high five on Sunday, and that's in race number 7. It's on the turf, about 7.5 furlongs on the turf, allowance runners in that spot. Our carryover in the high five, Emily, is just over $185,000. You see what they're anticipating for a pool there. As long as the field holds together, you're going to have a large pool. The thing about it, it's a 20-cent base minimum wager, so you can get a whole lot of coverage. A little bit of weather is expected. It's going to take a little bit of rain to come off the turf course on Sunday, though, because we just haven't had a whole lot of rain over the course of the last couple of weeks. But you have a field of 10 here on the turf. You do have a main track only as well. But if we anticipate that it's going to stay on the turf, I think everything kind of starts around the 6. Simple logic in this spot. This is a horse we know all too well for the reason that this was a horse in the Horse Players Invitational that finished second, Freddie Olczyk, when Command Central was the winner back on June the 25th. And
we'll see him
all
today.
of a sudden you're going to see you'll see Command Central today. You'll see Simple Logic on Sunday. The horse is going to be the favorite. So I guess the first question is, before we even jump into the horses, when you're playing a race like this, and it's a mandatory wager, just a 20-cent base minimum, How do you kind of build a ticket? Are you kind of building like a ladder type ticket where it's only a couple at the top and spread out as you go down, or you work a few different routes? How do you build a ticket for this with a mandatory payout?
I think these are all the right questions, and when it is a mandatory payout, I think you can go kind of both those approaches, right? Because you know it's going to pay out. It's unlike the jackpot day where it's like one ticket where you not only have to have the right order, but you've kind of got to outplay everybody else in order to get that. And I still think there's some of that strategy that comes into play, but I think taking a couple different approaches and using more of that wagering strategy than your handicapping. So that's kind of the approach I'm probably going to take. And as far as Simple Logic, because not only are they going to be the favorite, but you look at Simple Logic on paper, and it seems like the horse that's like the most reliable to get in those top 3 spots, right? And so it's probably going to be a horse a lot of people are gonna key around, as you mentioned, kind of those tickets where you ladder, or maybe you key off a horse and then spread in some different spots. I think that's probably going to be a horse that a lot of people key off of. And I'm not going to not use that horse. That would be ridiculous because the horse fits. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to key around some other horses and then use that horse in conjunction with some other horses, because let's say there is that rare situation where that horse does run out and it's on the majority of the tickets. At least I'm covered in some way. If I miss, I'll be, you know, if that happens and then I miss, that's a different conversation I'll have to have with myself in private. But yeah, it's more, when we're discussing this from a wagering standpoint, it's so much different than just the kind of like, who do you like, how do you see it type of approach. And
it's got to be a different approach because, like you said, with the jackpot aspect, you need to have favorites out of there, because if favorites are running 1-2, there's going to be multiple winners and it's going to carry over. Something like this with the mandatory payout, you have to make sure you have the horses on the ticket. It's just how you build your ticket, how you position them, and then kind of working from there. So when you start with a horse like Simple Logic, like you mentioned, this is a horse that's been the favorite in 4 consecutive starts. This is a horse that was also a beaten favorite in the last 3 starts. So you figure you're kind of looking maybe building the top end of the ticket around this horse, but with only 2 lifetime victories out of 21 starts, there's some others you can look to, and some other horses that could definitely be a factor. So I would say you put this horse in the mix for sure, but it's no guarantees that you can't say I'm keying Simple Logic on top and building from there, because it's not a guarantee by any means.
Yeah, but I think a lot will. A lot will go that way, and it could very well work that way. But you know, you also want to get paid, and if you know, if it runs kind of chalk 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's even with the the plus EV with the carryover going in and the big expected pool, you still want to have you still want to play it to get a score.
Yeah, and when you look at a race like this, all right, Chris Block has another runner here in Out of Deductions. Out of Deductions was the 6-5 favorite in the Hawthorne Derby. And that's the thing that intrigues me a little bit, because Mike Maker had one in there. Act a Fool was the winner of that race, and Out of Deductions, it was only a 6-horse field, but the horse got bottled up like the entire way around on a softer turf course and really wasn't able to make up some ground. I think this is the horse that actually might even be the better of the 2 block runners in the spot. You never know, and you're probably going to get a little bit more value out of this runner.
I'm kind of playing it that way, and it's kind of a little bit interesting because I still think that this horse has to prove it. That maiden win was extremely impressive, but again, had a little bit of trip in there. Is going to give up some recency. Is going to be taking out older for the first time, but I'm going to kind of play it as Out of Deductions is kind of one of those win or sort of run out type horses to where I'm going to use in like that first, maybe even second spot, maybe even first spot only if I'm kind of thinking that way, and then working around with some of the other ideas. But yeah, certainly has more upside than Simple Logic. Lightly raced type, still 3-year-old, that effort, breaking their maiden, that's one of the stronger numbers in this field.
Yeah, and the thing about it too, Out of Deductions also had to run the Hawthorne Derby without Lasix, so this horse gets Lasix back in here, maybe moves up a little bit, maybe it doesn't matter. We'll see how things unfold for that one. Now it was interesting, right before we went on the air, we glanced up at the screen and saw their field for the West Virginia Derby, and saw an AE in there by the name of Russian Hammer, and you're like, wait, that's a Manny horse. And we looked and it was, well, Russian Hammer is the 10 horse here in this race on Sunday. I do expect this is where they end up, kind of looking at this, because the horse isn't also eligible, but they would probably notify him ahead of time if they thought he was going to get in a race like that. I don't know if they take a shot like that, because the horse definitely would have a legitimate shot in this race.
Yeah, absolutely. Another one that comes out of the Hawthorne Derby, another one that didn't really have the best trip, maybe wasn't in the right spot for its abilities, just being at that class level, but came back and ran a good race, had trouble, made a closing run to finish in the money and the non-winners of one allowance, so it comes back under similar conditions. Another one that they stay in the race is one that I'm using in those top 3 spots.
And I think you're going to catch a decent price on that horse as well, so definitely could be a factor. The horse I ended up putting on top in my plays was the 5. That's McMoney. This one from the barn of Cheryl Weinbaugh. Manny Esquivel's ridden very well when he's been riding here during the meet. He rode this one to a victory in their last out of Horseshoe Indianapolis. That was a race that came off the turf. The horse might actually be a little bit better on the main track. So if you do get heavy rains and the race comes off the turf, I think it moves a horse like McMoney up. But when you're looking for a horse that you can provide a little bit of value in here, maybe this is a horse that merits a look, because ran in the championship meet at Gulfstream Park during the winter and faced some pretty tough company and ran okay. Not really proven on the turf, so you might catch a little bit more of a value in this spot. You do have a rider that fits the horse well. And I guess the question for McMoney is, if you're sitting at 5 or 6 to 1, it's how I would determine it. I might almost have to use this horse in every single spot, but maybe you have some tickets where I'm going to tilt it a little more towards the top, play just a couple underneath and then spread, and just hope this is a horse that runs in and runs a big race too.
Yeah, initially when I was going through this, it was kind of one of those horses where I'm like, okay, I want to find a horse that I can key and find some horses that I can leave off the ticket to try to make it a little bit more affordable. And McMoney was one of the horses that I'm like, I'm going to try to take him on because I'm just not sold in the distance. A couple of those races, been a little bit flattered. And then it's like I look at the plot and I'm like, I can't leave this horse out. Like, I got to trust the data. And you know, it's like a square and quadrant one. So it's like I'm going to kind of sprinkle him in a little bit just to, kind of for that factor. But you're right. There's probably going to be, I would guess, maybe the 3rd choice in there.
Yeah.
I think that's what you have on the morning.
Yeah, 3rd, 4th choice, right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it makes way more sense than where I was trying to get creative with it, that's for sure.
All right, now here's one other I want to ask you about, because I know we need to jump into the races today, but when we talked about that race at Simple Logic, we had the big score for Command Central with Eddie Olczyk back on the 25th of June. It was because there wasn't a whole lot of pace in that race and somebody was able to cruise around. Is a horse like the 3 Vitali the horse that could be that horse? Because again, it doesn't look like there's anybody really committed to the front in here. This is a horse that has been going 7.5 and at least forwardly placed. I mean, not necessarily the same class, but again, might be able to cruise along and maybe get brave at the top of the stretch.
Yeah, I kind of saw Vitali and Bakaneko sort of in the same spot, both kind of being forwardly placed. Bakaneko, I believe, for the Command Central connections, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I gave maybe a slight edge to Bakaneko, but I think I used both sort of in underneath. I even used Star Nation in there just as a horse that's not quite run that fast race yet, but another one that really hasn't run a bad race, and he's probably flying under the radar a little bit, especially with the surface switch. But those races that he's coming out of, those 2 most recent starts, it's almost a similar effort. He's making a big close and a big gallop out, so I know it's a horse that's in form, looks fine on the plot, so one I'm going to definitely kind of use to key at a price.
Yeah, definitely going to be an intriguing race. So for the high 5, that takes place as race number 7 on Sunday. Again, a reminder for everybody, when you're looking at it, $185,000 carryover. You have an estimated pool there of, they're guessing around $500,000. It's going to depend on scratches, weather, all that fun stuff. So we will see how things unfold, but that'll go as race number 7 on Sunday. Now here on Thursday, a couple of things. Fast main track, firm turf course today. Not a whole lot of scratches. I think 3 or 4 scratches on the card. The weather is very nice. Both courses played, I thought, rather evenly throughout the course of yesterday's card. So we'll see how it unfolds today. Before we jump into it, Efren down in our concessions and food services, it's his birthday today. So we want to say happy birthday to Efren. He does such a great job as well. So we see him down there in the PointsBet Sportsbook all the time, each and every day. Works his tail off. So happy birthday to Efren. If you're down there, make sure you say hello. You can't buy him a beer because he's working. You can buy him a soda or something along those. Maybe place a bet for him, something like that. But Efren, such a cool guy. So we'll see what happens here for today's races, as again, it's another one of our days for Bernie's Book Bank. We're going to place some wagers throughout the course of the day. Each of us had a positive day for them yesterday. I talked to Darren Utnick today from Bernie's Book Bank, and I said, how do things equate when it goes to books? And he said, basically, for every $2 you earn, that's 1 book you put in the hands of the kids. So we had a nice day yesterday, so it was nearly 300 that we got back between the 2 of us. So that's 150 books into the hands of kids. So that's really cool to see. They each get a bag of 7 books. So you kind of go along, it was 21 bags of books into the hands of kids. So that was a good start for us. So we're going to spread around with some wagers again today. We'll talk about them as we get into the card. But again, if you're at any of our Club Hawthorne OTBs, you can place a wager or drop off books and do things to help out Bernie's Book Bank as well. And we'll have drawings on Sunday with a chance for you to win a wager also. All right, race number 1, Emily, 5.5 furlong, 62.50 claimers. Non-winners of 2. Victor Santiago rides the 6. Looking at the board right now, the 5 at 3-5 is Sister Saint from the barn of Tony Granitz. Seems like most of the horses he sent over here have run pretty well. They all seem to take a decent amount of action. It's who I started out with in this spot, but I know you gave a little bit of a look to the inside horse who's overlooked right now, currently sitting at 11-1.
Yeah, and played that exacta for Bernie's book bank there. Just as far as Lunarchy, has enough early speed in here to maybe just get clear from the inside, and thought maybe there would be a threat on the front end. Opaline, former stablemate, likely to show early speed as well. But I think Lunarchy, better price, and might have a little bit of a pace advantage. So it's those two, and I hope they run 1-2 in this opening race.
And it's
get a few more books.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting. The horse comes off Lasix for today's race, so I'll be curious to see about that. But those last two starts didn't show a whole lot. I do agree with you. I think there's more in the tank for this horse, and I think 11-1 is a ridiculous price. I did use Sister Saint on top, just kind of based on the class edge with the class relief and Granitz, saying, okay, I'm going to send this horse from Indiana over here to Hawthorne today. There has to be some intent, so that's the one I went to in the opener. Second race on the card goes 1 mile on the firm turf course. Maiden allowance runners in this spot. It's a field of 8 in here, 50-cent early pick 4 wagering, just a 15% takeout on the pick 4. And race number 2, Maris from the barn of Wayne Catalano, is the horse that I used on top. Was definitely facing much tougher in Kentucky. They gave the horse 4 starts. Now they're going to send the horse over here to Hawthorne today, and I think a little bit of class relief is the key.
Yeah, quite a bit of class relief.
Yeah.
And that most recent start was actually sneaky good. She was caught widest throughout, was showing a couple moves in there before tiring late. So it was in form, maybe a little bit more form than that running line suggests.
Yeah, the mischievous one, a horse that's been trying to get on the turf. Stayed in a race that came off the turf in that last out and really didn't seem to handle things very well. But back on the turf course, things should be able to show a little bit more in that spot as well. But Maris is a horse that I do agree with you. I think is going to be very tough. Probably a short price there in race number 2. Third race on the card goes 1 mile and 70 yards, 62.50 claimers in here. It's a field of 8. I think everything in here, Emily, kind of revolves around the 7 Memphis Prayer, and then you work from there. 5-2 in the morning line, but this is a horse that the last 2 starts pretty good. Again, class relief is kind of the key for a horse like this, and I think that might be enough for the runner today.
Yeah, I agree. I found this race was the race that I probably had the least amount of confidence in, because if it's not him, it really opens it up to everyone else, and pretty much everybody else is sort of in with a shot. So I agree, you do have to start there, maybe watch the board, look for some visuals, look for some overlays in this spot. I gave another little bit of a look to Verrazano in the Sky. I know they kind of had a mishap training going up to that most recent start. Now they're going to drop back in where the horses won. I actually didn't mind him running for higher, but maybe this is just a better spot. But I agree. I think, you know, Memphis Prayer is kind of where you have to start. Outside of that, you could start making cases for pretty much everybody.
Yeah, you can. The Wineball barn has had themselves a very good meet as well. Watch out for the 5 Ready. This one from the barn of trainer Mike Durham, only for the fact that Mike Durham in the past, whenever he's brought horses here, they always seem to pop at decent prices, and they're overlooked a little bit on paper, and they've come in. He's had some monster winners in the past, so he's got, I think, 3 in on today's card. Definitely worth looking to a little bit there in race number 3. Fourth race on the card, 13-5 starter optional company, scratched 2 Ornery Angel, who was also scratched yesterday. 7 Palace Magic and the 9 Long Tall Woman. That was going to be a really quick return for Long Tall Woman, so that one's out. But you know what? There's some others that stay in, like Samarita, who does stay in with that quick return. I have that one on top, but there's some others that you can look to. I know you have Bloody Mary Morning on the inside also in the mix.
Yeah, I was going to try to take a shot, hoping you didn't get quite the pace scenario. I was expecting a couple of the races yesterday. Maybe things turn around today, but if Samarita, Stop Shopping Amy, they both go out there and kind of contest the pace early, and Matias also has a little bit of early speed, that could probably set up for Bloody Mary Morning, who has some form coming into this race. And I know a lot of those races might not look like it because it's longer and it's synthetic and turf, but fits based on some other one-turn races where she's run against the flow and competitive numbers. And then the other horse that I thought was kind of a wild card was Juliazon. Just kind of an upgrade in terms of if they do kind of heat up front, one that has a good closing kick. But that's kind of how I saw the race. I was like, okay, those 2 are going to be short prices. If they duel, then it's going to open it up and hope for something chaotic.
And you mentioned that just kind of how races unfolded yesterday. The Shackelford Strong race was a great example, because we thought it was going to be a contested pace, and all of a sudden that one made the top and kind of inherited the lead, and then we got the opening quarter in 23 and it was over. So it is, you expect races to go one way, and then you kind of see how things unfold in the end. So I'm with you. You have to handicap based off how you expect that race to run. And sometimes things just, horses get bumped at the gate, coming out of the gate, or things, and that's what happened.
That's what happened, right? 2 Worlds got bumped at the start, and then he was out, and then they went 23, and he was kind of playing chase from that point on. But Yeah, you know, take a shot, and if they're both short prices and you're wrong, then you turn the page and move on.
But what I liked out of that race, and Amy was very smart on Two Worlds, because that horse kind of got sandwiched out of the gate and wasn't going to be able to contend for the lead. So instead of rushing up and probably backing out of there, he settled back, had enough run left to go ahead and finish second in that spot.
Yep.
So it was a very smart ride by a very smart rider with Two Worlds there yesterday, but Shakovich Strong just too good after that break. Fifth race on the card goes 1 mile and 16th on the turf, $20,000 claimers. Take out the 4 Red Flag Alert, that's a big scratch in there, and then both MTOs. So it's a field of 7. All the prices are going to change in this spot. Pinedale's an interesting horse in here. Emily, Command Central now becomes interesting again based off that last race and not a whole lot of pace with Red Flag Alert out. That's a big scratch that just completely changes the complexion of the field.
Absolutely, and you said in terms of the betting board, I mean, it really just, everybody's kind of, they're pretty even. I mean, maybe Stormborn is probably expected to be the longest in this field, just a little bit softer number-wise. But for most of the runners, they kind of fit on their best day. And I actually keyed Pinedale for Bernie's books because, again, for that reason, I think he's going to be value. Going to probably get overlooked because people look on the standard past performances and see that 0 for 3 record. But that 0 for 3 record, when you dig a little bit deeper, a couple of those races were out in California when the horse was a younger horse, and then one of them at a higher optional claiming race over a good turf course at Ellis Park. So it's like it's hard to take those 3, and the numbers were still compatible to what he would take to run this race and what he'd been running. So I took a shot in there. I think he's going to be a price and need to get a lot of racing luck, but at least the number should be fair. Everybody's
evenly matched in the spot now after that scratch. So I'm with you. Sierra Hotel's a horse that I just like. I like how gritty and gutsy he is. He tries hard each and every time. It was a good win in that race, 2 back. You know what? The last out just was a little bit too far back and came running on a little bit too late. Amy back in the saddle. He's been aboard the last 2 victories. So Sierra Hotel for me in race number 5. 6th race, take out the 1, a Rainy Mountain, and the 2, Lure Him In. Field of 7 in here. This was one of my birdies book bank bets. I used the 3, 4, and 9 and a double with the 2 Beg, Borrow, and Steal in the last. Style's a horse I picked in that last out, and I thought the horse ran okay in that spot. Dream Streak was just a little bit too good. But looking at this race, you can go a few different routes. I know you gave Ribbons in Her Hair a little bit of a look in this spot in here coming in from Canterbury Park, but there's numerous horses in with a shot.
Yeah, I think my idea in here, because I played this race as well, playing a trifecta, was trying to get specializing out and using the other horses that you have, Bally Dreaming style, and keying Ribbons in Her Hair in first and second with some of those other horses. I even threw number 8, Candy Kick, in because Ingrid Mason horses are running so much better.
Very well,
and this horse has races that fit, so I'm like, okay, she could run back to those. She's in form. I got to throw this one in because it's going to be a price, and let's find out. But keyed those around, and basically my idea was trying to play against specializing.
Yeah, and you go against specializing on the outside, the horse that has speed. If somebody else beats this horse to the top, and I don't know, Margot probably goes also, maybe it's enough to kind of soften things up for others to come running late. But yeah, we'll see. I'm going to need that to happen for Style to come running after him there in race number 6. Finale goes 3/4 of a mile, 12-5 claimers here. It's a field of 10 in the last. As I mentioned, Beg, Borrow, and Steal is going to be my key horse in this race. I just think on Class Relief alone, and I think the horse gets enough pace to run after in here. But a horse that I picked 3rd, I know you used in the spot as well in the 7, Sweet Crystal, horse from the barn, a few Robertson. We talked through this horse a little bit earlier on in the meet, and the horse ran pretty well in that last out. And Sweet Crystal, I think you'll get a decent price still here today.
Yeah, I used a few. So we have quite a few horses covered. We're both alive in our tickets going into the finale. I didn't use Beg, Borrow, and Steal, but again, it's one of those that's like, it just comes down to more betting than handicapping, because handicapping makes a ton of sense. Sweet Crystal just has that early speed, has some buried form, seems like she's a little bit progressive in terms of her races. May start. Another one that I'm using, she was compromised by the race dynamic last out. It was a extreme race shape. She broke slow, was running on late, projects to improve. And then also Iggy Biggs coming in there. And then the other one that's kind of wild is Bally Baby, just because that last race, we talked about this pre-race, she just absolutely lost her race before it started. She was an absolute head case, so it's like I couldn't even give an excuse. It just doesn't even count, and they're going to come back. So we just haven't seen what she's made of.
And sometimes you just put a line through races and you say, okay, that's all it was, and that does happen in there. We'll see what happens. Bailey Weatherly, the 10-pound bug, rides the 3. Maystart has a few rides today, so we'll see how things unfold for the bug rider as well. All right, let's look back to race number 1. We are 10 minutes to post in the first, 5.5 furlongs, field of 6 in the opener. Victor Santiago aboard the 6. Ooh la de da, but we're going to look at the 5. Sister Saint first. This one at 4 to 5 on the board. Comes from the barn of trainer Tony Granitz. Julio Felix gets the call today. You're coming in off a little bit of a layoff. They're shipping him from Horseshoe, Indianapolis for this spot. The horse seems to have a little bit of a class edge, and looking at the board, the bettors seem to agree in this spot, Emily.
Yeah, and as you mentioned on the pre-race show, Grant is just spotting their horses well this meet. A lot of live runners and looking to place horses in the right spot. And Sister Saint looks like that as well. In terms of race par, it's probably not that much of a change from the races she was coming out of at Horseshoe, Indianapolis, but she was running competitive in those races. She made up a lot of ground after breaking slow on June 8th, and then had some trouble at the start in a wide trip in that most recent race on July 3rd. So she's had a freshening, and I think maybe just trying to change things up as far as the scenery. So it makes a lot of sense in here. Probably going to run from off the pace, especially if she does break a little bit slow. But if she doesn't, she's been able to show speed in the past. So kind of a wild card on that sense.
Yeah, we'll see how the race unfolds for this runner. But like I say, intent is always one of the biggest things, and there's definitely intent for this horse to come here and run well. I agree. That's who you have to start out with in this spot. Now, the 3-horse Opaline from the barn of trainer Larry Ravelli. This horse that sits at 7-2 on the board. Ravelli had a couple of winners on yesterday's card, and Opaline, horse that chased the pace in that last out and finished 4th. Ravelli had Be My Bestie on the turf in race number 1 yesterday as a very short price. This one you're getting 7-2 on the board, a little bit shorter than I expected, but definitely merits a look.
Yeah, just sitting at the second choice with the big favorite. I figured she would, just kind of based on the connections alone. As an individual, she's certainly capable, but another one that just doesn't have that much of an edge. She projects to be forwardly placed. We see that a lot with rally runners. We've seen that with her. She did break her maiden while she was on the lead going back to March 23rd, but was kind of drifting out a little bit. It wasn't that fast of a pace, and then she's been looking to get back to the win since and running a top effort. So at a short price is kind of the second choice. I thought there were some other ways to go if you like the favorite to try to pair up with.
Yeah, and you talked about the inside horse, Lunarchy, in this spot. This one's 11-1, Emily. Comes off Lasix today, but a horse that possesses some speed. It was a good win 3 starts back over this Hawthorne strip, and I'm still surprised that you're looking at 11-1 on this runner.
I am too. Yeah, I mean, maybe it is the Lasix factor that you mentioned. Maybe that's scaring people off a little bit. But in terms of that last race, it kind of seemed like it was in the right spot. She was claimed for the 6250 when she broke her maiden. They stepped her up for 25,000. Obviously, kind of that prep, right? There wasn't that much intention. Dropped her to where she looked like she was going to compete on July 16th. Had some trouble at the start. Was a little bit one-paced. So maybe that equipment change. Maybe they're just looking to kind of mix things up. I think it's encouraging that Hernandez was aboard that day and seemed like a live call, is back aboard. And if she is on her A game, getting back to that maiden win on May 31st, she has enough early speed that she could be out there. And Opaline, I'm not sure if she can run with her. Lunarchy is faster, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the crazy thing was in that start 2 back against $25,000 company, she was sent off at 9-2 in there. And this is a horse that now you're looking at 11-1 on the board. So see how things unfold for this runner today. They're getting ready to head out here for race number 1 as we offer Win, Play, Show, Exacta, Trifecta, Superfecta, Double Pick 3, and Pick 5 wagering. Good luck with your selections. Horses head out momentarily for the first.
Coming on the track for the Thursday opener, they'll go 5 1/2 furlongs on a fast track field of 6. Rider change number 6, Oh La Di Da, make the jockey Victor Santiago, no overweights here in the first. Win, Play, Show, Exacted, Trifecta, Superfecta. This race starts the rolling daily doubles, rolling pick 3s, and the 50-cent pick 5. Just 5 minutes to post. Dirt track is fast, turf is listed as firm, and the rail set at 20 feet out on the turf course. Parading here they are, 1 Lunarchy, Olaf Hernandez riding. Number 2 Mud Hut will be handled by Chris Amy. 3 Opaline with Alexis Centeno aboard. 4 is Hey Ma, Frank Reyes. 5 is Sister Saint, Julio Felix riding. And number 6, Ooh La Di Da, note the jockey change, Victor Santiago riding number 6. Post time in 4 minutes, track fast. This race starts the rolling doubles, rolling pick threes, and the 50-cent pick 5. 4 minutes till post, track fast, turf firm. Racing fans, little time remains for the wager on today's first race. This race starts the rolling doubles, rolling pick threes, and the 50-cent pick 5. Dirt track is fast today, will be fast all day long. Turf is firm and will be firm all day long. Rail set at 20 feet out on the turf course. We do thank you for joining us wherever it may be across the betting network here at Hawthorne, off-track facilities, comfort of your own home. We do thank you for joining us. We have 7 races today, just one carryover pool, and that's in the second race. The pick 6 carryover is $535. Again, no high 5 wagering today. We'll have a mandatory payoff on that pool on Sunday. The carryover of $185,460 will begin that pool on Sunday with a mandatory payoff in the high five. Moving towards the gate, closest starting time for race 1 at Hawthorne. Less than a minute, better hurry. Racing fans are at the starting gate for today's first race here at Hawthorne. Horses are entering the starting gate. Last two to go in will be Opaline and Ooh La Dee Da. Waiting now for Ooh La Dee Da. She's in, they're all in the gate. They're off. Towards the inside, Mud Hut going for the lead. Opaline came away well. Lunarchy is right there third. And then on the outside, Hey Ma came away fourth. Tardy starts for Sister Saint, and Ooh La Dee Da is the trailer, 10 or 12 lengths behind the embattled leaders with a half mile to run. On the inside, Lunarchy. On the outside, Mud Hut. These two locked in a head-and-head duel. 5 lengths back to Opaline. Then it's Hey Ma on the outside, followed up by Sister Saint, trailing the field. Ooh La Dee Da. They come to the top of the stretch, and those two are still at it. Lunarchy on the inside, Mud Hut on the outside. Around the turn, they're in the stretch, and Lunarchy now has the lead by a length and a quarter. Mud Hut trying to re-rally second, picking up the leaders on the outside. Here comes Opaline. Then in between horses gaining ground is Ooh La Dee Da. Inside the final furlong, Lunarchy's still there. Mud Hut trying to re-rally, and then it's Opaline. They're coming down to the finish. It's Lunarchy having the lead, and Lunarchy will win by about 2. Mud Hut second's going to be tight for third here. Sister Saint up along the rail for third, very tight for fourth. In today's first race, 1 Lunarchy finished first, 2 Mud Hut second, 5 Sister Saint third, 6 Ooh La Di Da fourth. 1256 is posted. It's unofficial. 105.79, 5.5 furlongs, fast track. Returning the unofficial winner, 1 Lunarchy. Lunarchy is owned by Arcelio Barraza, trained by Antonio Moraz, ridden to victory by Ola Fernandez. Today's first race is official. Running time 105.79. It's official. Prices at the moment. The $1 exact